good afternoon. Welcome to the Crypto Show. I'm your host, Tom, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. This is actually our first official show. So let's not waste no time. Let's get right into some news. Let's start off with New Hampshire. Over the last several weeks, we have got several reports of Bigfoot sightings in New Hampshire. This last report came with a audio file, which we was able to take and enhance. Some say it's a fox. I don't know if it's a fox or not, but you can find the video on YouTube, and you can also find it on our website, thecryptocrew.com. And let's see here. The next news piece would be Todd Standings. Todd is currently working on a new video documentary. But what's a little bit different about this, he is not in Canada. He is actually in the United States, in Montana, filming. Has been for a little bit. And I know the person he's working with. He has an amazing research area. So we'll probably need to keep an eye on that. I have no idea when the video would be coming out. And how about some Dr. Ketchum DNA, Bigfoot DNA study news. Not a whole lot to tell. There was a little rumor there was going to be a press conference yesterday, which was not really going to take place. It never happened. I mean, they put the word out that it was going to happen. Robert Lindsay, I think, was the one that broke the news, but it turned out to be unfruitful. There was really nothing planned. Dr. Ketchum did post on her Facebook page that things have started back going after the New Year's break. So that's something interesting to see how that goes. Now, let's see. One more thing maybe before we get to our guest today. I had spoken to Diana Navarro. She had uploaded a video to YouTube that was taken over in New York on December the 31st. She had got up and was going to take a picture of the sunrise. Well, as she looks out her window, there's these strange flashing lights in the sky. Well, I spoke with her back and forth about the video, and she wanted me to see if I could enhance it or whatever, maybe, see something a little more. And I did that, and it's a pretty interesting video. 8-10 objects in the sky, not planes. You can find that on our YouTube channel and on our website as well. I'm kind of interested to see what people think about that. And now let's get on toward our guest. Our first guest here today, and actually our only guest for today, is Jason Morse. Jason is up for Researcher of the Year and also for Photo of the Year. And he is also a member of our team, the Crypto Crew, and he has been investigating some of the reported sightings in New Hampshire. And today he will be talking about some of his research and some of his personal experiences. So at this time, let's welcome him to the show. Hello, Jason.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
I'm all right for an old man. How's the weather in New Hampshire today?
It's actually become very nice. Temperature is about 40 degrees, and very little wind, no precipitation. Can't complain.
Well, here in good old Kentucky, it is almost 70 degrees today. It's like a spring day, so
nice.
Makes you want to get the lawnmower going. Okay, Jason, let's start out by maybe getting a little background of what got you interested in Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts and things like that. How long have you been interested in this type of thing?
Well, just in December, I turned 42 years old, and as far back as I can remember, I must have been 3 or 4, perhaps, when I first saw the infamous Roger Patterson footage of Patty. And at that moment, I was completely and totally amazed that there's a possibility of something like this and hasn't been discovered. Of course, I didn't think that deeply about it at the time because I was so young, but as time went on, that's when more and more interest grew. But I've been, anything that I can soak in about the subject, I have been ever since I first saw the Roger Patterson footage.
Well, you talk about the Patterson footage. Me and you are roughly the same age. I'm a year older than you. I remember seeing it when I was very young on TV, hit the news, and of course, I've been a believer probably since I was real young, and but the first thing my dad said was, "It's a guy in a suit," and that guy in a suit is still going today, even though
right.
Some proved it, some disproved it, however how you want to look at it or what your opinion is on it. But it's just funny how that's people's automatic reaction. If they don't believe in Bigfoot or anything, the first thing they say, it's a guy in a suit.
Absolutely.
But like you, the Patterson footage was probably one of the first things that really caught my eye, as a young person.
Yeah, it was just everything at all. It doesn't matter if it was a documentary type piece. I was even a huge fan. I never missed an episode of The $6 Million Man when Andre the Giant was Bigfoot on one of those. So when I was a kid, it didn't really matter. When I was a kid, it didn't really matter. But as I grew up, I was more into the actual science aspect of it as opposed to the entertainment aspect.
Okay, let's go on to maybe a new question. I know recently, well, I guess it's probably been maybe a year or so ago now, that you actually had your first actual sighting of a Bigfoot. So tell us maybe what you was doing that day when you saw the creature and how you reacted and things like that.
Well, I'm sure most everybody who is at least thinks that they saw something of this nature, they probably will share my thoughts when I say it was, to not put any fine point on it, but that was a day that changed my life completely, for the better, I believe, and I'll never forget it. It was March 8th, 2011, and it was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was walking my dog, and we were just strolling around, and all of a sudden he froze. We were on a side road here in Newmarket. It's called Ash Swamp Road, and there's one spot, there's a large field on one side, and on the other side it's all swamp area. The dog came to an abrupt stop and just started growling, that real deep, nervous type growl, looking into the swamp. I stopped, looked, and tried to coax him on. He wouldn't budge. I looked down, he was shaking, and he was very afraid. And he's a golden retriever, so he's not aggressive or anything, so I figured there must be something in there. Initially I thought, deer, bear, something of that nature. So I started rocking back and forth and looking, and off probably, it was around 100, 125 feet away, I believe. I saw this black figure, and it also, I don't know if it was mocking me or if it was just happened to be doing the same thing, but it was rocking back and forth, looking from one side of some bushes to the other. And I sat there and stared at it for several seconds. It seemed like an eternity, looking back. But all of a sudden it stood up, turned around, took a few steps, looked back at me, turned back away from me, and off it went.
Well, I know some people may not realize maybe the two that you actually was able to use your cell phone, I do believe, and take a picture, right?
Right. It was my cell phone. I zoomed in as much as I could. However, most people know that the more you zoom in, the worse quality the picture becomes, especially with a cell phone. I took as good of a picture as I could. I took 3 or 4, and the one that's displayed on the Crypto Crew website is the best of all of them, where you can actually see the figure as it was kneeling down.
When the color difference, you can see the color difference too. It's you can see it's not part of the actual background or terrain. It's actually something there, you know.
Right. And I mean, when it stood up and turned around, I was pretty much right along with the dog. I just froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was nervous, excited, even a little bit afraid, and I couldn't even bring my hand up to take another picture.
Well, do you have any estimate maybe how tall you thought maybe the creature was, or?
At that moment, I knew it was tall. I could see simply that it was large. It wasn't until I immediately, after it went off and vanished, when it stood up, first I'll say, when it stood up and turned to walk away, there was a small branch hanging down. And as it turned to walk away, I happened to see that branch brush the top of his head, and it just bounced a little bit. I kept that branch in mind, took my dog back home, came back out, and I actually went out into the area where I saw it, because at this point I was flabbergasted, to not be able to think of a better word. I brought a tape measure with me, and I measured it, and that branch was 9'4" from the point that I was standing on, right underneath it.
Big
So
boy,
I estimate he was around the 9'6" area.
Any sound? Make any sound at you? Any grunts or anything like that?
At that time, no. He didn't. There was no noises. All I could hear when he turned to walk away was the footfalls.
Well, what do you think it might have been doing?
The only thing that I can think of, looking back on it now, is he could have, one of two things. He could have been coming out of the swamp to cross the road and that field, because very frequently in the morning I see, various types of critters, whether they're goose or anything else out in that field. He could have been headed that way looking for a meal, or on the other hand, he could have come across the field and was headed into the swamp when the dog and I walked by, and at that point he could have just been interested in stopped what he was doing and stopped to check us out.
Well, this was in March, so I'd say there wasn't a whole lot available to eat, so looking for food is a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
But this is not the first time you've ran into this Bigfoot, correct?
That was the first time. It wasn't the last.
Wasn't the last.
No. And I'm hoping it's still not I'm hoping the last time wasn't the last time. There was another time a couple months later that it was closer to summertime. The weather was nice and my front door was open. I was sitting on the couch, and from my vantage point I could look out the door and all the way down my driveway, which is quite straight. And I saw what most definitely looked like that same creature, if not one very similar to it, in 3 steps walk across a 12-foot wide driveway.
Well, what people should realize too, that this is in New Market. If I think I'm saying that correctly, New Market.
Yes. Yep.
And we have been getting reports, well, on and off for a year, but in the last month we've been getting a really heavy dose of reports within a 10-mile radius of that area. And I know you've done some investigation work, and things like that. Tell us maybe what you found or what you've seen that could be considered evidence that the creature is actually in the area and is staying in the area.
Well, the first and what I think is the best evidence that I have so far is there was a track line of footprints, but there was one print in particular that came out that it lasted way better than any of the others. And I took a photo of that. That also was on the Crypto Crew website. I also found a twisted tree break that, you know, the tree was approximately 3.5 inches in diameter or so. I don't see how it would have been possible for a human to have done it.
And it wasn't a squirrel. A squirrel didn't break it either, right?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a squirrel. And I also found a structure, not really a structure to be in. I think it was more of a marker of sorts. There was several trees that was leaning all together in sort of a teepee-like fashion. And if I'm not mistaken, that photo is also on the website. And in that photo, I took my hat off and I set my hat on one of the trees to get a basis of how large the trees were. There were no stumps in the ground nearby within around 100 feet. So I'm positive that those trees were, if those trees had fallen naturally, they were brought there for whatever reason. And I couldn't think of any possible reason that a person would want to go lug a tree through the woods and lean them all up against each other like that.
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, people get bored, but usually they don't do stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd have to be pretty bored.
Okay, let's move on to, I know you have gotten a few reports of sightings in your area. Tell us about some of those and you know, what they seen and where they seen it at and things like that.
The one that I found the most interesting as far as actually being able to speak to the people personally, I was approached by a young lady and another friend of mine, and they came to me and said that they thought that they saw a Sasquatch. And my initial reaction is the same as it usually is. I'm interested. I'm not going all crazy about it. So I said, okay, well, tell me about it. What happened? And this was very recent. It was in a couple weeks ago when it was snowing pretty good here. They were traveling down Camp Lee Road, and they rounded a bend, and they saw what both of them thought to be a bear at first, mainly because it was on all fours. And as they approached, they saw it from the side, and the guy that was with them said, there's no way it could have been a bear because I saw its head from the side and there was absolutely no muzzle whatsoever. Obviously, all bears have a pronounced muzzle. He said his face was quite flat. And they came around the corner and they were traveling slowly because it was very slippery. And they came to a stop. And the strange part to me was they said it kind of took its time getting off the road. It just sort of ambled off the road, and at that point, the young lady that was with him was afraid, and she just wanted to get out of there. So he obliged, and they left.
Now, about how far was that from where you had your sighting?
Roughly 2, maybe 2.5 miles.
So definitely within a traveling distance of something, maybe looking for food or...
Oh, absolutely. What interested me the most about that is I was asking him about things that are around there, and he said several hundred feet from where he saw this, there's a farm where he said he believes that they have small livestock like goats and so forth, but he knows that they have chickens. So once again, easy food source.
Right. And then I guess our next topic would probably be the most recent, would be the recording, which is
right.
basically in the same area. And I know you have contacted the people and talked to them. Maybe tell us a little bit about that and what they told you and what the next move is.
Yeah, I called Tracy. She is, I believe she said she's the mother-in-law of the fellow who actually made the recording. And we spoke quite a bit. Extremely nice lady. And in a nutshell, he was outside. He happened to have his cell phone on him, and he heard something off in the distance and had no clue what it was, so he started recording. He recorded video, and the audio came through, fairly well for a cell phone recording. The only question in my mind is the possibility that it may have been a fox. It's hard to tell. I've listened to numerous different noises that red fox make, and it's close, but I have no, my ear isn't perfect, so I could be mistaken. It sounded close to a red fox, but I thought it was a little bit different.
Well, that was me. I listened to it, and I thought it was very close to a fox, but to me it seemed just a little bit deep. The sound was a little bit deep, but it's definitely worth checking into because of the recent sightings in the area.
Yeah, and I'm actually, you can keep your eyes posted on the Crypto Crew website because I will be headed there Sunday to get the report from the people who are actually there, and we're going to go take a walk out in the woods and actually see if we can find some prints, because luckily since that was recorded it hasn't really snowed, so if there are any prints they should still be there.
Have you ever had any recordings or anything that you've made that you could compare it to sound-wise, or of your encounter, where you witnessed it?
Well, I just had the one instance where I heard good vocalizations and was able to record them. Those particular ones, in my opinion, was the subject that was making the noises that I recorded were a lot closer than the sounds that the other gentleman had recorded. I believe that the subject that was making the sounds that I recorded, I think was within 50 feet of me. And it was, the only thing that I could say is that he almost sounded a little bit disgusted. I don't know if it was because I was on the back porch smoking or there was something else, but it seemed like he was a little bit put out. It was, you get a teenager giving that sigh that they're aggravated. That's what it sounded like to me.
And it didn't sound like it didn't sound like the recording that recently come out where it could possibly be a fox. It didn't sound anything like that, right?
No, the recording that I got sounded nothing like, I'm very sure it was not a fox. The only thing that I could attribute it to, perhaps, if it was not indeed a Sasquatch, there's a possibility it could have been a deer, because they tend to snort and make some noises of that nature. I doubt it was a bear, because I've been living here now for almost 2 years, and I have yet to see a single bear in town, or anywhere in the area. I mean, of course, I'm not going to see it in town, but I live on the outskirts of the town. Yeah, let's hope not.
Have you took any steps to maybe like photograph the Bigfoot, trail cams or anything like that, or any way to collect any kind of hair sample or anything? Have you tried doing any of that?
I have, actually. Another Crypto Crew team member and I got together one time and went out back, and we looked around pretty good. We found some interesting things. Found what looked like it could be knuckle prints on the ground where it would have been, again, walking on all fours. That, strangely enough, it appeared to be following those knuckle prints that we found seemed to be following deer tracks. So I was almost wondering if it was in pursuit of those. But so far we've not found any hair samples. But I was fortunate enough to get a little lucky this Christmas, and my lovely wife purchased me a game camera, and it's out now. It's been out for several days. I plan to leave it out there for, well, probably until Sunday, and I'll probably bring it with me on Sunday when I go to see the other folks that had their recording. And if I find any evidence in that area, I'll probably put it up there instead.
Well, seeing how you have had your personal sighting and that you have taken in several reports from that area, do you believe that there is a Sasquatch staying in that area?
At this point, I can say with at least 90% certainty that there is at least one, more than likely a group, or as they're referred to in the Bigfoot community, a clan of Sasquatch right in Rockingham County, New Hampshire. And they've been hanging around.
Well, as long as they stay in the area, that gives us a chance to learn more about them, and it gives the opportunity for more people to see them. So I would assume that reports will keep coming in, and you'll still have some investigation to do in that area.
Absolutely. I guess at this point, the best thing that I could do is I would urge anyone from the area who may be tuning in and listening that if by chance you have seen anything or heard anything that you're not 100% sure of, don't be bashful to get in touch with me, because this is a small town and most people know who I am and know where they can find me, or know someone else who can find me.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of times people see odd or unusual things and they don't want to report it. I guess they're afraid of ridicule or being called crazy or something like that. But it's important to get them out. You don't have to give your real name. You don't even have to give a name. You can give us a location of where you've seen it and what you've seen, and it'll go into our records, and we can establish a pattern and an area where they're being seen on a somewhat regular basis.
Definitely.
Well, Jason, we're down to about a minute to go. I sure do appreciate you coming on today and telling us about your sighting, and we do appreciate the work you're doing out in the field. And,
well, you're certainly welcome, and I'm honored to have been asked to be your first guest on the show.
Well, we was glad to have you. Just anything you find, just feel free to contact me, and we'll go from there.
Most definitely, sure will.
Okay, I'll disconnect you now, and I appreciate you, Jason.
Okay, thank you.
That was Jason Morse of the Crypto Crew, investigating in New Hampshire. And before I go, I got just a few seconds. I can't help but say this. The tent video, Rick Dyer. Interesting video. I can't wait to see what comes of that. Thank you all for listening. Talk to you next time.